Passenger 57 begins with terrorist Charles Rain, played by the late great Julian Sands, who's about to undergo plastic surgery.
One last look at your face before I proceed.
I never live in the past.
I say this every time I get a haircut, but it's not in a cool British accent. It's in a stupid Midwestern one, so I always sound like a freaking idiot. Oh gosh, no, I never live in the past. Oh, sorry, spilled your big jar of blue liquid. The FBI shows up, and Charles Rain passes the distracted nerd test, because when he's backed into a corner, he jumps out the window. So many characters in TV and movies could be saved by just jumping out a damn window. Although I'm looking at my windows right now, and God, I don't know. For one thing, even if I was really scared, I don't know if I could bust through them. They're pretty solid. And also, I'm really high up. Once I landed, I don't see myself running down the street. Like the other day, I jumped up to try to reach a bag of chips on the top shelf of the pantry, and my knee kind of buckled when I finally made it back down to earth. We then meet John Cutter, who is a former police officer and Secret Service agent, who's now teaching airline anti-terrorist courses because he's become too much of a loose cannon after his wife was murdered in a botched armed robbery that Cutter tried to stop. And Cutter's friend Sly Del Vecchio, played by Michael Madsen, wants Cutter to head up the counterterrorism unit for Atlantic International Airlines. And the next day, Cutter meets with Del Vecchio and the president of the airlines, Stuart Ramsey, played by the venerable workhorse Tim Matheson. And they offer Cutter the job of vice president, and they're going to fly him to Los Angeles for the annual stockholders meeting to introduce him to the board. That's a similar scenario to when I was offered the sales associate job at MediaPlay. They flew me to Akron so I could meet with MediaPlay's board of directors. It was in kind of a rundown warehouse, and I only really met with one dude named Keith. There were other people there, but they were all just watching as Keith took pictures of me for the company website. And then Keith offered to buy my pants. Corporate America, am I right? Del Vecchio walks Cutter all the way to the gate to see him off because airports pre 9/11, they were just a freaking playground. You could just go anywhere. And on board the plane is flight attendant Sabrina Ritchie, played by Jennifer Connelly, and she's trying out a British accent.
It is a thing most wondrous to be flattered by one of your peers.
And God bless her, she tried her best. And Rain is escorted on the flight by an FBI agent played by Aaron Eckhart. And also on this flight is a boy named Norman, who's played by a young Philip Seymour Hoffman in his first Hollywood role, and his mother is played by Angie Harmon. And I gotta say, I'm very confused by the ages of most of these actors. They're not really lining up with how old I thought some of these people were. The plane then takes off, and I'm gonna dock a few points from this movie because of the laughable early 90s CGI that attempts to show an airplane taking off. There is no believable reason that that giant metal tube would just go up at a 45-degree angle. Its wings aren't even flapping. It looks stupid because it is stupid. Planes are stupid, and they're the weirdest part of the simulation that we currently live in. They obey no laws of gravity or physics, and I need them to stop. And if you say, oh no, I fly planes all over the place. No, you haven't. No, you haven't. Anytime you've been on a plane, guess what? They pump it full of oxygen and knock you out. And then they drive the plane to your destination. Why else would this plane have wheels? Planes are a lie. Wake up.
Wait till I tell everyone that I sat next to you on the plane. I watch your show all the time.
My show?
Never miss it. Woo, woo, woo.
Oh my God. You think he's Arsenio Hall? Nothing bothers me more than when someone mixes up two actors that really barely look alike at all. And that's the joke. We had some fun with that. But from here on out, we'll identify everyone by the actual actors playing them. Oh, my producer Daryl's trying to get my attention. What? No, I don't want to keep doing it. No, cut. It was just for this one joke. I don't want to. It's hard. Alright, fine. So Cutter is seated next to an old woman who is played by, I don't know, the social worker from Mrs. Doubtfire? I don't know. Man, I don't want to do this. So it's time for the dinner service on the plane, and when Sabrina goes to serve Rain, she pulls out a gun and shoots the FBI agents. And she frees Rain, who immediately just opens the cockpit door. Man, 9/11 just fucked up a lot of shit, didn't it? Like back in the day, you could just stumble into the cockpit and say, oh, I thought this was the bathroom. Don't mind me, I'll see myself out. The things they took from us. We then see two more of Rain's goons. A man named Forget, played by the same guy who played the Iceland coach in Mighty Ducks 2. Yeah, Daryl, I'm not doing your shit. I'm only saying things that are real now. What? That's not the dude from Mighty Ducks 2? What the hell? Okay, maybe this is easier than I thought. Alright. And Rain's other goon, who's played by none other than Journey's Neil Sean. I'm back, baby! Miller manages to call Del Vecchio and alerts him to the hijacking, but Rain takes passenger 67 hostage.
Sir, tell Mr. Cutter your name.
Douglas.
Oh shit. Rain just made the biggest mistake of his life, because Doug is not your ordinary passenger. Doug is a special operative working for the NSA. On paper, Doug doesn't even exist. Doug is a ghost. Doug works in the shadows, but if he's ever exposed to the light, you can rest assured he will extinguish yours. Yep, that's me. Name's Doug Prime, overseer of the light and leader of the Order of Dougs. You may be asking yourself, what in the heck is the Order of Dougs? Well, the lore of the Dougs runs deep. Now, the Dougs have been around since the time before time. You see, when the planet needs a hero, a Doug is assigned to that planet. And you're probably like, that's still a noodle scratcher, Doug. Let me elaborate further. You see, Dougs...
Mary, let me know the minute you make contact with the pilot.
Notify ATC, bring them up to speed on our situation, and I want a complete list of everybody on that plane. I want it 5 minutes ago.
Sir, the only person who can travel back in time is Doug. And you'll never guess where that crazy son of a bitch is right now. And we meet another of Rain's henchmen, played by yours truly, the one and only distracted nerd. My Uncle Greg was the best boy on Passenger 57, and he pulled some strings and got me a pretty prominent role. And it was my idea to be casually reading a magazine. The director was incensed by this, because he said Charles Rain would never allow such a lackadaisical attitude from one of his henchmen. But Uncle Greg threatened to hold his breath until they allowed it in. My Uncle Greg's crazy, but he's very persuasive.
Charlie, you ever play roulette?
On occasion.
Well, let me give you a word of advice.
Always bet on black.
And now this is a kick-ass line and it sets the stage for their epic showdown, but it is a terrible strategy when playing actual roulette. This advice has cost me tens of thousands of dollars over the years. There's less than a 50% chance for it to land on black. I mean, hell, if this movie starred Kermit the Frog, I'd be ruined. And Cutler and Marty make their way to avionics to see if they can take over the plane, and they're attacked by one of Rain's goons named Vincent, played by Michael Ironside. This cast is stacked, but Cutter dumps the fuel and forces him to land in a small airfield in Louisiana, and the owner of the airfield is played by the iconic Johnny Cash.
Negative 163, we're not a commercial airport. Suggest you reroute.
And the stars keep on coming, because the small town sheriff is played by either J.T. Walsh or Nick Searcy.
Biggest damn Cessna I ever saw. All right, Otto, get somebody out to the runway and let me up in the tower. Patrick, let's do something, huh?
Ew, Patrick, do something else besides licking your boss's ice cream cone. The plane touches down and Cutter and Marty are going to jump out when they're attacked by 4J and Cutter gets thrown out of the plane.
If she disobeys, kill her.
She's disobeyed like 20 times. Kill her now. She's a huge liability. And Rain says that he'll kill 5 passengers every 5 minutes until he gets the plane refueled. But he says that he'll release half the hostages, but it's all a trick so he can sneak away out the back with his henchman Vincent. And now my character didn't have a name, but I always like to think that his name was like Brock. Ooh, or Tanner. Brock Tanner. Hold on, let me update IMDb real quick.
Come on.
And now, big oopsie on my part. There was an elaborate chase scene that was supposed to happen, but I accidentally locked the keys in the car after begging them to go to the fair so I can get an elephant ear. So we just kind of had to write in the fair to the movie. And now my Uncle Greg was also the assistant armorer on this movie, and he accidentally gave me a loaded gun. Luckily, I missed Wesley Snipes, but I did severely wound this clown. Like, that's an actual look of disgust. He was looking at me. I was having a real case of the Mondays that day. And the next scene called for me to climb up a Ferris wheel chasing after Cutter, and he was supposed to kick me off, and I was supposed to land on an inflatable surface, but my gun went off again, and it popped it, and I hit the ground really hard. I was in sheer agony just screaming, "My coccyx! My coccyx! Oh, I've broken my coccyx." And instead of helping, everyone was just laughing at me. Worst half birthday ever. And they made me lie in this position for like 6 hours to make sure they get the scene right. I asked if it was necessary for the scene to have my bottom prominently sticking up, and they just snickered and said, "Oh yeah, it's part of the director's vision." But looking back, I think they were just being jerks. Cutter subdues Rain long enough for the police to arrest him again, and Rain tells them that his men on the plane have instructions to start killing passengers in 20 minutes if he's not released. And as they're leading Rain to the plane, shots are fired, and in the chaos, Rain is able to get back on and takes off down the runway, and Cutter boards the plane from the landing gear. And Cutter and Rain get into a fight on the plane, and no one comes to Cutter's aid. But I guarantee that every dude on this flight will go on to say that they could have stopped 9/11 if only they had been on those planes. They'll also say that they can fight a bear if they had to. And then Cutter kicks Rain out the plane, and the day is saved.
John Cutter, this is Douglas. You have done well, my friend. Earth Prime has been saved. I am no longer needed. This world hardly needs a Doug, but it has a hero. Such as you.
Oh, so stupid.